This episode of XIV Reborn is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial and to receive a free audiobook, just head on over to audible.com/gamebreaker. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 23 of XIV Reborn. It's January 21st, 2014. You're watching Game Breaker. I'm Gary Gannon. Coming up on today's show, patch 2.15 talk. Is using a parser cheating. We're going to talk about that and golems, mages, and minions, oh my. But first, joining us with some XIV chat, you know, Mr. Happy, Mr. Michael Poveromo. How are you there, sir? You hunkering down for the snow?
Yeah, don't remind me. Luckily, I've got plenty of food I can cook in the house in case.
There's like a blizzard going on outside of your place, huh?
Yeah, it's really bad. I could barely see out my window. Just when there was actually light outside. Now I definitely can't see out of it.
And joining us as well, Mr. Michael Byrne. How are you? Are you stuck in the in another nor'easter or whatever? What do you guys got going on? Is it a nor'easter? Is it a polar vortex?
Yeah,
Is it a black hole of?
It's a death hole polar vortex ice storm with snow and a little rain. I
Is
don't
it
know
really
what the hell
another
they're
polar
calling
vortex? Is
it.
it another
No,
polar
no, no,
vortex?
no, no. It's not a polar vortex, but it's a nice little clipper snowstorm.
We've had a lot of snow so far this winter.
Yep,
way more than like.
Although it's all right because I'm having a nice dinner with the wife after the show. 13th anniversary was yesterday, so.
Oh, congratulations!
She had to work, so we're gonna have a nice dinner after the show and before after dark. So I'll be warm.
All right.
She's just outside your door listening.
So last week, you guys went over patch 2.1, reviewed it in full. Now 2.15 went live just last night. Obviously, this patch is nowhere near as big as the 2.1 patch, but there's still quite a bit going on in here, isn't there?
Actually, yeah, kind of surprising. Like,
yeah.
you expect the typical, okay, here's a rundown of all the bugs that 2.1 put into the game, and we're working as fast as we can to take them out. And they did do a little bit of that, but we've already started to see the PvP balancing that we kind of mentioned has to happen soon. Not only that, the events, of course, the Shantoto and cross-promotion events. So I was actually, yeah, pretty impressed for a midway point fixer-upper patch.
What about the stuff that people were expecting that isn't going in? People are a little...
Yeah, there's a couple fixes that people thought might go in that didn't make it. One in particular we'll get into pretty detailed in a little bit here when we get to the old binding coil of Bahamut. For the most part, I think some of the things we wanted that didn't make it are still on their way, but there is one really pretty big one in particular that isn't going to be fixed because Square Enix doesn't view it as a bug. We'll get to that in a little bit, though. Well, that's a tease right there.
Yeah, let's talk about the PvP. Let's talk about some PvP again, since that is quite
Welcome
a few
back
issues.
to PvP, Gary. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah, since a few issues since 2.1 dropped, apparently. What's the deal with the whole jump bug? What's going on
I
there?
haven't PvP'd yet today. I don't know how well they fixed this.
This is still my favorite thing ever.
Yeah, I've been saying since 2.0 jumping was going to be a problem at some point because of the way they checked it, and nobody believed me. And Yoshi P's just like,
Hey, avoid it.
Please don't. Please, you're ruining it for... I know it's easier, but just don't, please.
That's like such a not like good answer. Please don't do it. Please avoid this jump bug. Well, Mr. Bird or somebody really quickly, for those who may have missed what the jump bug is, can you please fill us in?
Yeah, so the whole thing with the positioning check, which we've talked about previously on other episodes before 2.1, the whole position check of the system gives you a 0.3 second check before the game checks where your character is every 0.3 seconds. In PvP and max level events, they've changed that now so that it's 0.1 second position checks. So you get more real-time action and knowing where your character is and whether you were caught in certain things or not, which made sense for PvP. They had to do it. One of the things they didn't consider, though, or at least didn't work out by the time 2.1 rolled around and PvP dropped into the game, was how jump plays into that position check being at 0.1 seconds. It doesn't play into it very well. You could actually use jump as a viable dodge mechanic so that Melee had a really hard time hitting anybody that was just jumping repeatedly. And so people were just doing it. They were just jumping around the entire PvP
Can we get a GIF
arena.
of that, please?
Please don't do that, Jeff. Please just avoid jumping in PvP. Please do not do it.
Yeah, that was the best part. Was the Yoshi P came out and was like, "Hey guys, don't jump right now. We're gonna fix this. We're gonna try to fix this. But in the meantime, just stop jumping."
Maybe because the Eastern market is so not used to having jump anyway that they just wouldn't figure it out. And the Western market was just like ding, 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 ding.
That was a big deal. What's even funnier to me is that Yoshi P's like, we don't want jump to be a mechanic of anything. Biggest bug in PvP.
Yeah, right. That was in a live letter. As he was asked multiple times, is jump going to be required for anything, or are we just able to jump? And he was like, no. So that kind of threw jump puzzles and all that type of stuff out there. I'd still contend that there are a few quests where you have to be able to jump, so it is necessary for some small things. And PvP, it was totally broken.
Is it addressed now? Have they fixed this?
Intended.
What do we know at this point? Supposedly, do we have any confirmation
did you PvP at all today? Because I was going to, but I had other things to work on.
It's fixed. I still think there's a little more tweaking that they need to do on the timing, though, because it can still be manipulated, but it can't be just totally beat like it was previous to today. Literally previous to today, as long as you had some type of instant cast or whatever you wanted to do, I'm predominantly caster. So you just sit there and slam on your space bar and hit your instant casts, and it was really, really difficult for Melee to get a hold of you. You can still use it as a viable get-out-of mechanic, but the timing has to be a lot more exact. It's not just totally foobarred across the board. We'll wait and see, because it is only like 8 hours or 12 hours in.
Little early to tell.
The PvP experts parse it all out over the next week and give you a little update next week.
You mean no one on this show? We'll just leave it up to somebody else. We'll leave it up to someone else.
I have connections.
P has connections. What?
We know people.
What's going on with how's class balance doing? How's that faring these days?
They definitely made some good changes in 2.15. I don't know if they. I hate when they make a change, and you can see how it only affects PvP right now, but they go out of their way to say it's for PvE and PvP. I was like, no, that's not for PvE and PvP, because PvE doesn't make use of that at all yet. But maybe they have plans for it in the future. I think there's still some more balancing that needs to be done, but it's a bit more in line now.
Is 2.15 like the patch to bring pet balance in check?
Yep.
Summoner definitely saw some changes that they're not going to like. Anyone who was enjoying the easygoing days of Summoner, not going to be happy with these changes.
The easygoing days of Summoner.
Hey, I have a 50% heal reduction that also slows you. I've got an AoE bind. My pet completely ignores half of your abilities that reduce damage and evasion. I can resurrect people in combat, and if I bring another summoner, me, the other summoner, and the healer, we can all res each other and make the match go on for 20 minutes. Those are the easygoing days of the
Chat's
Summoner.
already
They're
asking.
all well gone.
So is PvP balance fixed? Hell no. Hell no. PvP balance isn't
in any
fixed.
game.
Yeah, true. In any game, it's never going to be truly balanced, and I would argue on a different show that it doesn't need to be totally balanced. But there are big problems in 14's PvP. But a big one got addressed, and that was the Arcanist, Summoner, Scholar class being ridiculously overpowered in PvP. It was full of utility, it was full of damage, it was full of evasion, and they've taken away some of those abilities. They made it very clear that the tweaks that they've made here are only in PvP. That was another one that Reddit and the forums kind of went nuts when they saw the initial proposed changes, and they were like, oh, yeah. I'm never playing my Summoner again. It's only PvP that these changes are happening. Like,
how
for
is
instance,
that working
I'll give you a nice one. a nice change that I like, but if you're a scholar or if you're a summoner and arcanist, you probably don't like. You lost your res. You can't res
Oh, yeah.
now.
You can't
The
res as a
scholar
summoner.
is the only of those, the only class of those three that can res now. There are big changes that needed to happen. A huge balancing piece was done here.
How is
Yeah,
the community taking
miasma.
to like them making changes though, just to the PvP side of things? Are they enjoying it? Is it making the game kind of confusing? Because a lot of game companies don't want to do things like this because they're afraid that players don't really understand how to play their class completely two different ways, and they usually don't want to, you know, make them sort of separate. So how's that working out?
People who played summoners, not happy. Everybody else, thrilled.
Super happy.
I mean, they
Summoners
lost. They
don't
lost.
want
a
to play the
lot.
game anymore. Everybody else thinks it's great.
They did lose a lot. They lost.
They did.
Their slow built into disease. Disease itself got nerfed for PvE and PvP. It's just a healing reduction. They can no longer res, and on top of that, you can only bring one ranged class now, which has definitely changed the way people have to think about their PvPing. You can't have that whole. You still, because still double summoner would still be really strong if you could have it. Even summoner, black mage, summoner, bard have a lot of advantages over the group, and those jobs just won't see those kind of advantages anymore. Hell, Bard's Foe Requiem isn't part of the equation anymore because they can't queue with another caster DPS anymore. So a lot actually changed, even if it was just the result of a lot of little things changing.
Yeah, and on the whole, these are good changes. These are good changes for the game, good changes for the PvP in the game. Yeah, of course, anytime your particular character was once the most powerful and now is pulled back to be in line with
Worst
the
change
other
ever.
classes. Exactly. It's the worst change that's ever happened in the history of video gaming. But no, this is good for the game, and generally most people are behind them. Keep in mind, other classes are going to be going through these too. Summoner, Arcanist, Summoner, and Scholar one needed to be adjusted
Marauder.
fast. Yeah, Marauder's next.
Marauder.
So what about the other classes? I mean, those are the three biggies that obviously got changes. Did all the other classes get changes as well?
Not really. Warrior saw the healing reduction change that Miasma saw as well, mainly because disease and the effect from warriors are two different things. So what a lot of people were making use of was your warrior would put on 150% healing reduction, and your summoner would put on another 50% healing reduction. I'm pretty sure they're multiplicative, so it's not 100%, but it's like 75%. But still, that's part of the balance changing that they did. But outside of summoner, not much really changed other than the team compositions, forcing you now to have one melee and one ranged DPS. You can't have two ranged DPS or two melee anymore. You have to have one melee and one range every single match.
Is
this is where they lose me.
Yeah, they lost me here too. I won't lie.
This is where Square Enix starts to lose me. I've always, Gary, you know this. You and I have talked about it many times, and I've always said PvP in 14 is at best an entertaining distraction. I don't even think it's there anymore. I can't put it there. When the fix to fixing your PvP is to limit the classes that can play together on a team, there's something seriously wrong. Yeah, there's something inherently wrong in the system then. And now that you need to have it was a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS, which we thought before it launched was limiting enough. We didn't like that makeup, right? We talked about that on this show. Now it's not only that, but now it's one step further. It needs to be a tank, a healer, a melee DPS, and a ranged DPS. You're really starting to limit who can play with who, and now you probably screwed some pre-mades up that were floating along, having a lot of fun. Now that fun's taken out. They've got to rebuild a team if they decide to continue doing it at all. And that is not good long-term in my book. This is really not a good idea as far as fixes go.
Yeah, I've watched MMO companies do this time and time again. It's like I don't understand there's this inherent like sort of it's ingrained in them. It seems that an MMORPG has to have player versus player in it to survive. But when it's not done right, I don't know how any of this adds any sort of benefit whatsoever to the game. Like I don't see how this. I don't know unless I'm completely mistaken and in the Eastern market or something, maybe some of these things are completely acceptable and maybe limiting classes is completely acceptable. And maybe they just don't care about these things. I know in the Western market, we care. And to me, it just seems like why even have it? Like you're getting yourself more terrible press. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, but I don't really think the community of Final Fantasy even really wants it. I mean, they'd be like, oh, sure, this would be nice distraction if it was here and
Exactly.
it worked well. And they're not going to turn it away, but I don't think they're going to stop playing the game if it doesn't get put in. And this just seems like they don't really know how to kind of do it. They're just kind of like, they've got this sculpture and all of a sudden they just took an extra piece of clay and they just kind of like stuck it on the side and they're like, oh, that's cancer. Yeah, she has cancer. So I'm just...
You're absolutely right. And Mobius in chat says it. It's what happens when PvP isn't designed as a core mechanic of the game. It's an afterthought that's tacked on. And it's sad to see. I mean, I know why they went for it and why they want it there and everything, and I would like to see it implemented well, even if I'm not generally a fan of PvP, particularly in my Final Fantasies, all up in my Final Fantasies. But this isn't implemented well, and to me, I hate to be that guy, but to me, it's like getting a little worse with each step. Then the 3-man queuing advantage, that wasn't really fixed. It was just counterbalanced on the other side.
What'd they do there? That's not sorted out either?
If you don't know what this is, people were queuing as 3-man groups. Because if you queue as 4, then you get automatically bounced up against another 4-man pre-made, right? But if you queue as 3, me, Gary, Mr. Happy, we can all be voice comp PvP masters. We got our teamwork down pat, and we just are willing to take one stranger with us, and we can queue faster, and we can rake through the points faster because we're actually a pre-made team with one stranger. To counterbalance this and to stop people from doing it, all they did was they upped the experience levels and earnings for people that queue as 1, 2, or 4-man parties, and gave you an incentive not to queue as a 3-man party.
Here's a little bit of a carrot.
Now I understand they can't just go and say, yoink, you can't queue as a 3-man group anymore because the system's not built to allow that. I understand that, but to me there's just got to be a better way than saying, hey, if you queue as anything other than a 3-man group, we're going to give you increased points whether you win or lose the match.
That's because there's bigger problems here. The system has larger issues that they're just Band-Aid fixing with different things. So none of these things are going to work in the long haul. Come on. We're not game developers over here, but it's pretty damn hard to just patch this stuff up. We are. I would just, yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about player versus environment. The P versus E. The stuff that everybody, the stuff that actually XIV Reborn fans actually care about. Last week you guys were talking about a Crystal Tower loot bug. What was happening? What was going on?
Well, just picture this, Gary. You're going through your Crystal Tower.
He's like, let me set the scene for you, Gannon.
You're going through Crystal Tower. It's your first time in. You get through the first 3 bosses. There's no loot that you want. You don't roll on anything. And you kill the 4th boss, and you're watching that cutscene at the end because it's the first time, and you're looking at the victory screen with everyone going, yeah. And while you're doing that, there's a little loot button in the top right, and your entire party leaves before you're done watching that cutscene. You got that piece and can't get loot for the rest of the week because you are the only eligible person remaining left in the party. So it just defaulted to you. And you didn't click pass in time.
Oh, and by the way, it's Monday, so you can only get 1 piece of loot a week, which means you're screwed until next Monday. You haven't even started playing Dragoon, but now you have the pants. Congratulations.
Better start. Go do that relic quest.
Well, it's a bug. It was a bug. Is it fixed?
It was a bug.
Fixed?
It was a bug.
Was it fixed?
It was fixed.
It is fixed. Woohoo!
Now you don't ever have to imagine it again.
I don't have to go through that whole thing again. Now I'm happy.
Nope.
All right, good.
It is fixed. There's actually
bugs
loot added to Crystal Tower too.
Yes.
They added a 4th chest on the final boss that can randomly appear, and everybody in the alliance can roll up against that if it drops because it gives the same thing, guaranteed the same thing if the chest appears, and it's a mat to make a crafting thing for your house. More furnishings
for all those houses that are out there. For all those
all
houses.
7 houses.
But you know what? I do like that idea going forward. The random chest that is not guaranteed, that has a guaranteed piece of loot in it, because that could even be used for things like crafting recipes should they ever go that route. And I really think that they should. Another topic for another time. But even for just rare loot, for mounts, for anything, I don't like how in the extremes the mount replaces the loot. Cool. It's a mount. I needed my ring that I've been here 60 times to try and get also. I would like to get that too. So I hope it's a route that they take going forward, adding on an extra random chest for things.
Free companies should like some of the 2.15 fixes as well. So particularly the points refund and the housing prices. So what's the point refund? Is there something wrong here?
Yeah, this was an internal ID error, so it's kind of a databasey thing. Basically, when your free company has enough points, which are earned through everybody just playing the game that's in the free company, you can buy actions for your free company, and they're usually things that burn for 24 hours, and it's like, okay, you're going to get increased combat experience over the next 24 hours. You're going to get increased crafting experience for the next 24 hours. Perks for being in a free company. As your free company levels up, more and more and more become available to you in stronger fashions. They just cost more points. Well, in between 2.0 and 2.1, no problem. When 2.1 went in, apparently some of the IDs on the back end of the system for these actions weren't quite right, and free companies were spending points on things but not getting what they were buying. They were getting the weaker versions, or in some cases the wrong versions of the actions that they were trying to buy. The biggest botch of points was 17,500. So anybody that was rank 5 or higher when your free company was rank 5 or higher when 2.1 started, your company is going to get 17,500 extra points just to replenish that. They're just one-time fix, give it back to everybody. They've adjusted the IDs on the database side, so it's not an issue when you actually buy the actions anymore. But it's a nice little refund. Even if your guild didn't get shanked, you're getting 17,500 points.
Nice 17,500 points on top of the 1.8 million. You know, definitely a major factor that I was totally looking forward to.
Oh, shut up! It's free points, you big baby.
Complain.
I don't want free points because I have too many.
What's going on
There's
with the
nothing
housing
to spend
prices?
them on. And the housing prices just. They're really
what's going on? Is this
those home.
Yeah, is this the start of the tumble or what?
This is the start of the get more people houses. I mean, obviously they've been going down over time, naturally. And of course, on the worlds, I think it was 3, 4, and 5, or it was just 4 and 5, I don't remember. They've already been doing those big drops every few weeks to bring them more in line. But then on top of that, we got these changes, you know, aimed at really the houses that, the more affordable houses, the houses that at least in most people's eyes should be more affordable. And
the projects of Final Fantasy XIV, if you will.
I've started seeing a lot of actually nice small houses popping up. One day I logged in and there were just 2 new houses on the plot, which I never thought would happen with the prices on our server, but I'm seeing people making use of those small houses, and especially.
Is this just on the legacy servers or what?
Where was it, Bern? Do you remember?
No, this is an effort to make the lower end of the housing tiers generally affordable everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. Now Legacy is still getting the top tier houses pricing adjusted to come more in line with regular servers. But as far as these big reductions, which were like a 25 and a 50% reduction over the course of this update and the next update that's coming down the road, these were big updates for the the low income housing. I don't know what you want to call it. It's the lowest tier of housing in Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, and I think Reinhardt translated something today that was a nice little announcement while we're talking about housing. Is that you won't have to worry about the price for those things like airship crafting and stuff. They said they will make that accessible to all sizes of houses. So if you just want a house to participate in content, don't feel free to pick up those small houses.
Hey,
personal housing still keeps coming into this discussion too.
Move right here.
No. Yeah. Can you go back and open up your window there? I just want to move the blinds. I want to see the snow coming down.
Oh. I don't think you'll be able to see it. There's no light back there. It's dark out.
Just pull the blind up. I think I can sort of see it through the blinds. I want to see if I can see this here.
I'm pulling the blinds up. That's why I gotta move by all.
See, now this is where Mr. Happy shits himself because Gary's actually outside the window.
Notice how there's nothing on this bed, right? I'm moving by it over here on the side.
Oh, damn! I can't see anything.
Yeah, you can't. It's too dark.
Can you shine a flashlight out there or something?
What, do I just look like I have a flashlight handy?
Gary wants to see snow so badly.
I'll pick up the whole lamp and just point it at the window.
How about you like open the window, make a snowball or something, bring it back inside? That could be fun.
Make a snowball? Yeah, I'll put it in my cup of water right
I
here.
can do that. I can do that right out here.
Replenish my. Yeah, I'll send you a picture. I'll just Google snow real quick and send you a picture.
Thanks, bro. Thanks. Good looking out. All right, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this other thing that people kind of thought was hopefully going to get fixed. They were thinking that an alternate strategy to turn 2 Bahamut, Binding Coil, was going to get, I guess, implemented or fixed. What's the alternate strategy here?
Okay, so there's the normal method, and then there's the cheese method of beating turn 2 Binding Coil. I love cheese. The normal method is pick a couple globes, go kill them to rob the final ADS boss of those abilities, and then deal with the other mechanics from the orbs that you could not beat or didn't have time to beat or just chose not to beat. And play fair and dodge the mechanics the normal way. The cheese way of doing that fight is, since it's a timed fight, you have 12 minutes before the boss enrages. Mm-hmm. It's a soft enrage. It means the boss drops all abilities and starts doing the same attacks over and over again with increased attack power and everything. And it's supposed to put the pressure on that if you don't do it in 12 minutes, this is going to kill your party within a few seconds of the soft enrage. It's not an instant kill. And that's the problem. Instead of taking 2 tanks and 2 healers, you can take 1 tank and 3 healers and your DPS. Go sit and wait until almost the 12-minute mark, pull the final ADS orb, group up, and when it enrages, have your 3 healers AoE heal the shit out of the group, and ride out the enrage. You have as much time as you want. You don't have to dodge anything. You just stay still and overheal the hell out of it. As long as you can keep the main tank alive and enough DPS, the fight could take 6 minutes. It could take 30 minutes, depending on your DPS. You're going to beat it as long as the heals can keep everybody up, with which 3 healers healing 5 people generally isn't a problem, and so people were able to roll through this.
Sounds like it's working as intended to me.
Well,
it is.
Square Enix happens to agree with you. And they do not view this as an exploit.
Do you? I take it from your tone of voice that you feel like it is an exploit?
I actually agree with Square Enix. And I'm glad that this wasn't fixed. I don't know if, Happy, you feel the same way, but I'm glad this wasn't fixed.
I mean, does it just make it so easy, though, that like everybody just knows it and it's like pretty much a no-brainer? You just totally can just get through turn 2, no problem.
Absolutely.
Oh,
and I don't promote people doing it this way because, simply put, if you can't do turn 2 the way it's intended, then some other content may be out of your reach.
But apparently, according to Square Enix, it is intended. Like they're saying this is fine.
Well, the thing is,
and there's no mistaking that Square Enix feels that way. The quote is pretty clear.
Very clear. The thing is, I have a few reasons why it doesn't bother me that they didn't fix it, though. Because I don't think they should have fixed it at this point. 1, it's been 5 months since it's been out, really, and it didn't really become popular till, I guess, 2.1 is when I really first started, like right around 2.1 is when I started hearing about it. The content's going to get nerfed in 3 months anyway. It's already been out for as long as it has been. You designed the initial encounter with all of these exact numbers in mind. You had to have tested it and seen how much damage it would have done and how much effort it would take to survive it. They had to have known all that going in if they actually tested their encounters. So they knew this was not an insta-kill encounter or mechanic when they designed it. For that reason, not going to say, penalize the people that are doing it or it's an exploit. They designed it that way.
But here's a question. So they come out and they said it's not an exploit, but that doesn't necessarily say that they're not going to adjust it, does it? I mean, they could...
Take a look at the quote.
Take a look at the quote.
It's really clear on both points.
The development team is aware of the strategy that is being used for the Binding Coil of Bahamut turn 2 against ADS, and is that ADS or ads?
ADS, you're right.
And they do not consider it to be an exploit. There are currently no plans to make any adjustments. Whoa, I'm corrected. I am corrected. No plans. I'm surprised. I thought they were going to go and say, hey, like, we don't think it's an exploit. We're not penalizing anybody. Hey, not bad on you. But hey, maybe we'll make it adjustments to this and you know, kind of just fix this sort of thing. So how do you feel about that?
I'm cool with this.
Why?
Both ways. I don't think this is an exploit, and I like that they don't plan to do anything about it. First off, I do agree with you, Mr. Happy. If you can't do this fight the right way, turn 3, well, not turn 3. Turn 4 is going to cock block you something fierce anyway. It doesn't matter. So enjoy your Allegan bracelets of casting, and let's call it a day. Our group was the same way. We cheesed it once to see if it could be done, and then it was like, yeah, we're only going to do that if it's going to reset the next day, and we still haven't beaten it. We can beat it the right way, so now cheesing doesn't feel so bad because we know we can do it the right way.
I mean, is the consensus also watching chat? I'm watching chat, and they're sort of saying like, "Hey, if you don't do turn 2 properly, there's no way you're going to do turn 4. So what does it really matter? Is that
exactly?
Is that really think what they're feeling? They're like,
true.
"Hey, you're not going to finish this. You're going to have to go the hard route no matter what."
There are some people who just don't trust pug groups. That's another reason why I'm glad they didn't fix it. Because don't get me wrong, pug groups already had good strategies going in for players that were either A, learning the fights, or B, were just doing it with random people that were required minimum what's the word I'm looking for? Minimum communication. There were already good strategies going around for that. And if they found one that was even easier, as far as I'm concerned, there's no point in fixing it. You're going to nerf it.
Is 2 now easier than 3?
Anyway.
Is 2 easier than 3 with this?
3 isn't really a boss fight. It's a gauntlet. You have to run from beginning to end, and most people don't even fight the monsters that are in it anyway. It's a waste of time. There's no loot or anything. So
nope.
I'm glad they didn't fix it. So Gary, I like that there are multiple ways to do a fight, whether this was intentional or not. I like that the players are able to find alternate ways to do it. And Square Enix doesn't immediately punish that idea of let's find an easier or a better way of doing it by saying that's not the way we intended this fight to be done. Yoink, you can't do it this way anymore. This.
You know what I like to say when people say that's like if they had all of a sudden made Caduceus way harder for not killing slimes. In my opinion, they're one and the same. Sure, one of them is a bit more. I guess one is more cheesy than the other. One is just simply so much damage that you can ignore mechanics, and the other one is just ignoring mechanics by waiting until the enrage hits. They're different in that sense, but it's the same thing, is that they intended you to use slimes on Caduceus to reduce the damage he does, and getting above a certain number of stacks to kill your tanks. But even the first groups that beat it weren't doing that. They were ignoring the slimes. And that rose the whole... Then that prompted them to want to make changes to Warrior, even. Because they said the popular strategy for turn 1 is something that we don't feel Warriors can compete with right now. They don't have the tools for it. It was actually one of the things that was a catalyst for them sort of changing initial Warrior. Maybe if they had done it so they had to do it, maybe Warriors wouldn't be as awesome as they are right now. It would still be cool, but not nearly as awesome.
Not nearly. Any other big changes from 2.15? Any other things we should chat about before we move off of the 2.15?
Not major things. There were a lot of nice little changes, though.
Check out the patch notes. I mean, there are a nice handful of bug fixes and stuff. We're going to talk about the events later, so no, we're not skipping those. Just check out the patch notes.
Yeah. All right, I want to talk about this parser thing coming up here, but first I want to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Audible. Super, super happy to have Audible on as a sponsor of XIV Reborn, and right now I want to hook you all up with not only a free 30-day trial, but also a free audiobook. All you have to do is use the URL audible.com/gamebreaker. Go to that URL, sign up, make an account, download the app. They have apps for both Android, iOS, all that stuff, your iPad, whatever you want to put it on there. And you'll be able to pick one free book. I think we've talked about this series in the past. Great series. Monster Hunter series is awesome. So check it out. This is book 3, actually. All the books are on here. Highly, highly recommend the Monster Hunter Alpha series by Larry Correa. Check it out. That could be one of your books for free if you've read 1 and 2. Maybe pick up 3. If not, of course, start at 1. But fantastic series. Tons of good stuff on there. Tons of fantasy, tons of sci-fi. If you're a fantasy or sci-fi nerd, definitely go check out the Audible. And like I said, we want to hook you guys up with a free 30-day trial and a free book. I've been an Audible user for years, long before they ever became a sponsor here on the show. So I'm so happy to have them on. Check it out. Just go over to audible.com/gamebreaker, sign up, make the account, and get to listening to your free book tonight. All right, so Burn is what?
I got you some snow, Gary.
Yes, thank you.
Snow for you.
Let it snow, 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 snow. I haven't seen snow in a long time. Thanks.
Oh, that's just messy.
It's like 80 degrees.
Oh,
It's like 80 degrees here today. I don't even know what snow looks like. Thanks for that. All right, let's talk about this. So apparently using a parser for DPS or healing 2 points or healing monitoring could apparently get you banned.
Womp womp.
Yeah, so the eternal add-on debate continues, but things
I'm really surprised you didn't use the dun, dun, dun.
I don't have anything set up right now. Don't call me out. I have nothing set up. We had a video switcher go down. We were here all weekend. I don't have any of my bells and whistles ready. So we're lucky we're doing a show and it's stable because we've been having all kinds of technical issues. Oh, a little chilly there? A little chilly?
You'll be all right.
It's all good, Burn. Suck it up. All right, so what's going on here? Recently, a few people have started posting things on Reddit and other boards letting players know that they are actually getting banned or warned by Square for using FFXIV app. Before we go any further and dive into this, what the hell is FFXIV app?
It is a unofficial. I wouldn't call it an add-on because it's not. It doesn't add on in the traditional sense that we think of add-ons for like WoW or another MMO. But it's a third-party application that is able to parse the combat logs from Final Fantasy, and not quite real time. It lags a little behind because of the way it works, but parses out the combat logs to at least generate things like healing per second, damage per second, total damage done, stuff like that. So basic combat data.
So do we know if does it violate the terms of service at all? Is it just, I mean, it sounds like some sort of like basic set of like meters sort of add-on that we've seen in other games. I mean,
and that's
just not official.
Yeah, and that's the debate. Is that question right there, is does it actually violate the terms of service? It's arguable that it does because it is essentially going into the application and mining data out of it, and data mining is explicitly pointed out in the terms of service. But it's not actually interfering with the client-server relationship or changing anything in the files. It's reading data that all the players have access to. It's just reading it faster and organizing it than Mr. Happy sitting there looking at an unparsed log and parsing it himself over the next 24 hours.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we hear that? Didn't the team plan on having add-ons part of the long-term?
6 months after launch, they said, which would line up with 2.2, but we haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah, that's when they were estimating the API to be opened up, with 6 to 8 months. So yeah, it's arguable that this is a violation of TOS. I could definitely see Square Enix at some point saying it does violate our terms of service and being able to legally prove it.
So why? All right. So we're like, why do you speculate for a second? Why do you guys think that they're possibly clamping down on this and cracking down if they had, if they do anticipate supporting add-ons in the future, which they've said in multiple interviews throughout the years? I mean, we talked about it, and I think they're pretty open about saying that they were going to support it.
Yeah, Yoshi B said it in multiple places. We got it. I mean, I had to go through and
change things. Do you think they're going to go
quotes? But
You know what's even weirder to me, and I couldn't find it. I think somebody in my chat the other day found it, but I'm like 98% positive that there was a post somewhere in the length of 2.0 before 2.1. Somebody posted and asked, are these allowed on the official forums? And it was right when parsers first started becoming popular. And I'm almost certain somebody answered and said that all they said was use them at your own discretion. We have no problems with them. They're not against the terms of service. Use them at your own discretion because they are not official programs put out by Square Enix. We are not responsible for any problems you might have because of these things. I can't remember where it is or if I couldn't find it, but I'm almost
it is
positive.
a forum post.
Yes.
It is a forum post, and the reply was done by one of our favorite, yours and my favorite friends on Twitter. I don't want to put names out there and get somebody in trouble now that this is becoming a little bit of a bigger issue, but that is a forum post. And then we have the quotes from Yoshi P that I gave you for as early as 2011 up until now on the idea of add-ons. Here's the idea, though.
I'm reading. Wait, hang on one second. I'm reading through this now, and like it kind of makes sense. Maybe so. He said this quote is from Live Letter 2. It says the type of add-on I have in mind are those of UI persuasion. For example, you can have players customize the UI with a skin of their choice. Yada yada yada. Add-ons will become So, I'm trying to look through these too. I mean, the only thing I can kind of like. The possible conclusion here is that they have a major problem with this one in particular because it's a parser and it's actually doing math and it's not just a cosmetic UI customization kind of feature. I mean, is that really
and that's the thing, in the 2011 interview with Zam, Yoshi P was very specific in the quote, and it had UI add-ons for the UI in there. And then in Live Letter 2, when they talked about add-ons, Yoshi P again there talked about add-ons and being able to customize this and this, and it was all UI related. Want you to be able to take, for instance, the aggro chart, the tick marks and the numbers next to party member names on who's has most aggro, and make that its own display so that it's not tied to another display. And that was what he wanted to do, was split things that allow you to split things apart that already exist in the UI and customize it visually that way, which leads me to believe that's exactly
that's actually pretty limiting as far as like we support add-ons. That's like we half-ass support add-ons. How many add-ons are actually doing some sort of like data? They're doing usually good add-ons do something with data. It's not just a visual representation change.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless you would consider a parser appearing on your screen as a visual change. But
what's your take, Pete? Why do you think they're cracking down on this? Do you think that it's that reason? Is that because it's actually doing some sort of math?
It's really confusing to me. And it's even more confusing to me that's the only app that people are talking about. There are other parsers out there, not going to name them right now, but so far the only case seems to be with XIV app. And maybe because I don't really. I'm somebody who's kind of weary about downloading even add-ons when I played, WoW for brief. I just don't like downloading things that people have created. I just don't trust them really all that often.
Well, and Square Enix has said, and Yoshi P has said previously, that the add-ons are going to require Square Enix's approval for exactly that reason. When they start pumping add-ons, he wants to make sure that they're safe, that they don't contain viruses, that they do what they're supposed to do, that they don't interfere with the enjoyment of the game for other players. And that's where this gets dicey. First off, Square can't even tell that you're using this type of application, right? The people that have posted on Reddit and have posted elsewhere have specifically said to other players in-game that they are using this application and that, Gary, your DPS sucks. I'm looking at FFXIV app and you really need to bust it up. And then Gary reports me and the GM has a chat log where I admitted that I'm using this app. Right. Those are the people that are getting in trouble. It's a client-facing app, so you can't tell. It's kind of like Windower was for Final Fantasy XI, although Windower got way out of control. So yeah, anything that anything that interferes with somebody else's enjoyment of the game. In other words, if we think it's going to cause some one person to abuse it, then the 40 people that would use it the right way can't use it. And this, to me, is just a recurring theme in the development of this game. Yoshi P's even acknowledged that DPS meters are probably going to exist in some fashion, but they're not going to officially make one because they can interfere with the enjoyment of others.
So where do you guys see this landing? Where do you think Square's gonna? Where do you think they're gonna draw the line when it comes to add-ons in general?
UI only.
I think they'll get it at some point. We saw how hesitant they were with Vote to Kick, and granted, Vote to Kick is on a totally different level than a DPS parser. But eventually, I feel like they have to understand. People like to see numbers. People like very clear and concise information. It's even this conversation could even roll into the fact that you can't even see what your crit percentage is. You know what your base damage.
That was the best forum post. We're not going to show you your crit percentages, so just trust that when you increase your crit stat, that your crit chance is also increasing. What?
And that's like saying, oh, I got better gear. I'll just trust that my DPS is getting better. And it might, but it doesn't mean that the DPS was good in the first place. There are just good ways. They can be destructive, but they can also be extremely constructive. Even for players that may not necessarily care that much about everybody else's numbers, there are people who care about just their own numbers. There are people, raid leaders, who like to be able to keep track of what's going on across all their groups and see how they can make improvements. There are positive ways to use this, and just as Mr. Brent said, because you're going to have that one guy who went into Pharaoh Sirius or Ruins of Amdapor and went, hey, you're doing 8 less DPS than you're supposed to be doing. Get out. Vote to kick or vote to abandon. I don't want to get a leave early thing.
Is that going to happen anyway? I don't know. It seems like
it's going to happen anyway.
It seems like a little bit being a developer, a little bit out of touch of how people play.
The strangest part of this of all is that this application, FFXIV app, at one point, I wish I could find this, and all of a sudden things are disappearing and nobody can find them. At one point, this app had access to source code. It was approved for access to the code so that it could start doing some certain applications with nodes, mining nodes, and things like that. And then XIV database. How do you think that database is getting its information? It's data mining the material, and Square Enix supports that because it's a resource. Hell, there's an argument that even Libre Eorzea is doing the same exact thing, but because that's sanctioned by Square Enix, that one's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. I don't know. So if they actually go down this like limited sort of route and they went only with UI customization, do you think they should even bother?
Stop.
I say no.
I guess in the case that they're going to limit it,
UI, put the damn UI options in the game and call it a day.
Yeah, I completely agree. But if they don't, then if they don't go this way, and I hope they don't, there's a lot of really cool ideas I've already had for apps. I'd love to learn how to develop apps using Final Fantasy XIV when the API becomes available. A lot of good ideas, and I feel like you never want to stifle the creativity of your viewer base, and this isn't the first time they've done that. They've been doing that way before with even how you're allowed to use the footage in the game.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of rules in place for Final Fantasy XIV that, as someone who played 11 for so long, they didn't have certain ones of these there either, and I don't know why 14 all of a sudden has become the stomping ground for Square Enix to stifle creativity and there's another word I'm looking for.
Do you guys think that the console comes into play here? Does the fact that
I believe Reinhardt said they will be approving add-ons and that the PlayStation 3 will actually have access to them. I believe Reinhardt said that they did say PlayStation 3 will be able to use these add-ons since they're Square Enix approved. I'd imagine maybe
that's the problem. That's the stumbling block, is that Square Enix has to approve these, and they're not going to approve an app that I can use on my computer that Gary can't use on his PlayStation 3. They're just not going to do it. That is definitely a huge part of this stumbling block, is the PlayStation.
That may even be why they're starting to crack down on it now. He's saying because of the consoles, might be because it's giving the PC players an edge over the console users.
An edge, because I can see the numbers.
But you can see other things. You can even see the percentages of the boss HPs with some of these things now. That's information again.
I also have a latency. I also have a latency edge over you, PlayStation 3. Come on.
Do you guys plan to use on add-ons then, or you both?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, that wasn't the question.
Anyway.
If I have ever used XIV app in the past or in the future, I certainly would not admit it in-game or on this show. That's for sure.
Yeah, word of warning. Be prepared to possibly get banned if you're using it. So shut your mouth or don't use it.
Shut your mouth. If they come out and they're good, I'll use them because I have, like I said, I have a lot of ideas. I'd love a clock that shows you that internal healing and damage over time effect. I would love an add-on for that. I would love a parser for healing, overhealing, damage, TP spent per second, just statistics. I like tracking statistics. But as Mr. Burns said, if I'm just going to be able to make my UI look like it's straight out of Final Fantasy VII, then just put that in the game and let's move on with it.
Gonna have to see how this turns out. Gonna be interesting. Yeah, hopefully they don't half-ass this. All right, next up, Shantoto and friends are in town. So we got to do event celebration. New Year's is over. That whole bizarre horse head thing, that's done.
So many horse heads that I couldn't put my armory chest, my armoire. I was so upset.
So there's actually, we actually have 2 events going on at the same time now, right? What's the story going on here?
They're going on at the same time. That's pretty much the story. They're doing a 3-way collaboration between Final Fantasy XI, 14, and Dragon Quest X. So Final Fantasy XI is bringing over a character, beloved character, called Shantoto, and I believe this is the result.
This is this Dragon Quest MMO, right? This is like
yes,
that
the one that doesn't even exist
in the US. Yeah, the one that we
we don't even... No, apparently we'll get it someday. I don't believe it, but we'll see. But yeah, so it's Dragon Quest Online, Final Fantasy XI and 14. For Final Fantasy XI, they held a poll about, I think, a year ago on what the most beloved Final Fantasy XI character is, and Shantoto won. And they're pulling her over from Final Fantasy XI. And then from Dragon Quest, they're pulling the very, very popular Thug helmet and the golems. They're both very iconic features in the Dragon Quest series. And they're just 2 different events that are happening at the same time. That's pretty much all it is, but that's what they consist of.
All right, so we don't have the Dragon Quest MMO. But what is it like? Is it just a bunch of Fates again?
Not a bunch.
Like?
2 each.
2 each?
It's 2. Not only is it 2 each, but you can just go to a spot and they're both right there. Like you do the first one, and when it's done, the second one will pop right there immediately for you to do. And
have you finished both of them?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the events themselves are, it's kind of cool seeing the big Shantoto that we've seen pictures of forever.
And the spell she was casting.
Yeah, it was cool to see, but it's over so quick that it's like, okay, a couple more fates. That being said, we're not going to spoil it, but watch your cutscenes. Don't skip them just because you're going to get your minion faster. Watch your cutscenes.
Who the hell?
Particularly the Dragon Quest one for Zipuff Puff.
Zipuff Puff.
Who the hell is this giant Shantoto?
That's the character from Final Fantasy XI. It's this big Taru mage, and it's stomping through. You'll watch your cutscenes.
Watch your cutscenes. It's fair. I wish I could talk more on what that. Who?
Don't worry about it. Just spoil. Nobody. Everybody's done about it. You can talk.
We still haven't even spoiled the 2.0 storyline yet, or Coil.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
We're gonna drop spoilers
today.
on this day one.
Don't worry about it. They're done. Everybody's done with this.
Spoil it.
Everybody's done with this. Don't worry about it.
You didn't do it in the first 12 hours. You weren't doing it.
If I go look right now, there's probably less than 3 people at each of those feeds. People who are getting off of work are doing them now. And
they won't be angry. Don't worry about it. They want to hear about this type of thing.
Everyone's just like puff, 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 puff.
Yeah,
puff.
All of chat. Zip puff puff. Zip puff puff. Zip puff.
All right, let's do some viewer questions before we get out of here. Then you guys are not going to obviously spoil it, so let's do some questions. Shinjima says the day before the patch, I got 103,000 bonus XP from dungeon, but now today I get 55,000 bonus. What's the deal?
So the only thing I can think of is he, for the first time and probably his entire time using the duty roulette, got a dungeon that wasn't Sastasha, and you didn't expect to see a lower number. That bonus XP you get at the end of the duty roulette is dependent on the level difference between your actual level and the dungeon you got thrown into. So if you're level 45 getting thrown into a level 15 dungeon, you get like 200k XP when you finish at the end. But if you were to get into a level 44 dungeon at 45, you get a lot less at the end, but you're getting a lot more throughout the dungeon itself. That's the only thing I could think of. I don't think that's anything to do. He didn't give us more specifics, so that's just what it looks like to me.
There's nothing in the patch notes that indicates they've nerfed that or made changes to that. So unless it was a ninja thing and they didn't put it in the patch notes or didn't make it in the patch notes, I mean, we'll keep an eye out for it, but I didn't see anything officially about dungeon XP.
All right, next one up. This one from Nayobari. He wants to know, wants a guess. Nayobari wants a guess on what item level the dungeons in 2.2 might be. Who's gonna guess? Who's gonna guess?
I've been trying to figure that out for the past week now, because it actually is an interesting question. Are they going to go the route of completely undermining everything that we did in patches 2.0 and 2.1, where dungeons are going to go immediately to drop an item level 90 stuff, and then the next sort of I guess tokens, the tomestones that you can use are going to be 110, and then coil will be 130. Because that's about the rate that it increased when we hit level 50. We were level 50, and it ends at 95 with the weapons 90 for all the armor. It's a 40 item level gap. Are they going to continue 40 item level gaps? Or are we just going to see maybe a 20 item level gap for the new coil, and the new dungeons themselves that he's specifically asking, are they just going to drop maybe item level 75 gear, and then because Crystal Tower is still 80, coil is still 90. It's rough. I think that it's going to be less than item level 80 on the new dungeons, the new 4-man dungeons, because why would even implement Crystal Tower if you're going to completely undermine it a patch later? Well, you got to wait 2 patches before you undermine it, at least. So I say 75.
I mean, the only thing remember, I mean, Crystal Dungeon was thought to probably come out a lot earlier than it actually did, wasn't it? So if they had this stuff really mapped out for the long haul, they may have blown their window there, and that might be screwing up everything.
In that case, they should just do a patch where they have both, where they have a coil and a Crystal Tower, level it out, and then continue from there. That would I would wait an extra patch for something if it meant that the rest of my experience would be at least be consistent.
What do you think, Byrne?
I tend to agree. I don't see them. Sadly, I think this one's kind of going to be like a nickel and dime patch until we get to about 2.3, 2.4. I would guess that item level from items that drop in the dungeons is going to be in the 70 to 80 range, so they don't negate Crystal Tower. And then maybe the hard mode versions, I could see them going into, well, the 1 hard mode we're going to get, the 2 hard modes we're going to get going in the 80 to 90 range to help flesh out the gear for the tail end of turn 5. We'll see. I agree with Happy. I don't see this jumping to like 100, 110 like some people think.
All right, last up here. I think this one is kind of directed at you, Burnsy. This is what's a hard close wants to know what's the most efficient way to level alts, gathering, crafting, and guild post launch.
Well, hell, alts is assuming that you mean Disciple of War, Disciple of Magic. It's Dungeons and Fates. That nothing's changed there except now dungeons are a viable option, which previously they weren't prior to 2.1. Crafting and gathering, the leaves and particularly some key ones are huge as far as being able to do that. And Gil, hell, run dungeons. Go do anything now. Everything pretty much that didn't drop Gil when the game started drops Gil now. You just got to be willing to do it. Happy and I were talking about, in particular, Gil pre-show. Go do your Beastman dailies and go do your treasure hunt. Boom, that's a nice chunk of Gil. There you go.
There you go. Michael Byrne, follow him on the Twitter at MagicMan with the number 1, MIGICKMANN1.
Live letter, Saturday, 25th.
Saturday.
Getting up early.
Check out twitch.tv/Reinhardt TV, REINHEAR TV, for the live letter live translation as it happens if you're going to be up at 7 Eastern and 4 Pacific. 4 a.m.
Wait for the
Pacific.
VOD. Thank you very much.
I will definitely be there.
Michael Boverham, follow him on Twitter at MrHappy1227, and make sure to go over to his YouTube channel over there for more Final Fantasy XIV content. Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. Follow me at Gary Gannon. You can follow Gamebreaker TV at Gamebreaker TV. And check out our new show. We got a new show called This Week in Steam. Episode 2 is up on the site right now. Check that out. And we have another new show I should tell you about. Go watch Gamebreaker, the show, which is a fun one. It's not a game-specific show, so it is not about any one game. It's a hoot. It's myself, Pat Crane, and Coltrane covering the top news in video games every single week. And it's live on Thursdays at 9 PST. Check that out. Episode 2 is up on the side of that as well. So This Week in Steam and Gamebreaker the show. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great week. We'll see you next week for some more XIV Reborn.